Mickey Mouse, the one who started it all. Many people have worked on this flagship character, and for the next few weeks, we're going to highlight a few, starting with one who was essential in Mickey's ability to emote. Ha-ha! I mean, ho-ho? Let's find out. Before we start, don't forget to check out our Discord, our coffee page, and like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the things. It really helps us out. Born Robert Fred Moore on September 7, 1911, the date so nice it makes the Evan sound twice. I screwed that up. He attended Polytechnic High School in Los Angeles. Not much has been written about Fred's backstory, but from what we do know, neither his situation nor his education was very sophisticated. He is an international man of mystery. His talent was natural, and it just seemed to be there. In high school, Moore did take some art classes, and that's where his talent really matured. It's likely, however, his training here was pretty basic, and there's little to suggest he got any very advanced teaching, like an international man of mystery. Fred often submitted drawings to the Los Angeles Junior Times, a magazine for young people. Each time his drawing was published, Fred earned what he called Bright Junior Times buttons in lieu of cash. After high school, Fred worked as a janitor at the Chouinard Art Institute in exchange for drawing classes, which is a pretty sweet deal. Or should I say stinky deal, because he was a janitor, like with stinky trash. Okay, getting paid in buttons and drawing classes? Did this economy ever use money back then? As limited as this training was, he did show great talent at this point, and soon there was an event that turned his life around. There are a couple of urban legends as to how Fred Moore started at the Disney studio. And despite what we'd all like to hear, none of these urban legends involve Fred being bitten by Bill Tightly by the light of the full moon to the music of A Night on Bald Mountain. However, some say that he was never really hired and just showed up in the place of somebody else. What a king. Others say that the people at Chouinard were so impressed by the drawings he did as a janitor that they brought them to the Disney studio. Also like a king. Or Good Will Hunting. How do you like them animations? Some have even said that the drawings Fred submitted to the studio were on grocery bags, like a reusable, responsible, recycling king. However, the story that is most likely true is the one that his close friend Chuck Couch explained here. I encouraged a friend to apply for a job at Disney, but that friend suggested Fred as a substitute. I took some of Freddie's drawings over to the studio and Walt flipped right away. In any case, Moore started at the Disney studio in August 1930 at the age of only 18. Right from the start of Fred Moore's career at Disney, people were blown away by his drawing ability and the amazing natural talent he had, as well as his sensibilities that were perfect for Disney animation.
Freddie was one of the best animators, the most natural animator that's ever been in the industry.
Always chasing cats, aren't you? Well, you're going to have plenty to answer for on your judgment day. Now lie down.
He had to feel right about what he was doing, and it'd take him quite a while to work up a head of steam. But once he was feeling right, he'd sit there in his chair and his feet wouldn't even reach the floor. He'd put them up on the wheels of the swivel chair and pull out another piece of paper and sort of humming. In about an hour's time, without ever breaking his concentration, he would do as much work as someone else would do in a whole week.
While it's clear that no one remembers much development in Moore's style, and that everyone thought he was unbelievable from the start, he actually started rather low on the totem pole, and it took some time for him to proceed up. When he first came to Disney, he was placed as an assistant animator to Les Clark, a brilliant animator who had previously been a iWorks assistant, and now had taken his mentor's role as the key Mickey Mouse specialist in the studio. You can learn more about him here. Clark quickly grew to have large respect for Moore, and was amazed by his talent. Animation came too easily to him, reflected the mentor. He didn't have to exert any real effort. Although Les was Fred's mentor, another animator proved to be one that really inspired the young man. The animator was Dick Lundy, who had an amazing gift for timing, staging, and draftsmanship. Lundy had learned under the legend-in-the-making Norman Ferguson, and by this time was one of the best animators in the studio. In October 1932, Moore began to be given little scenes to animate alongside being an assistant, and his first time animating in a significant role was on the short Santa's Workshop. guess you could say he made the nice list. However, it would be the second short he worked on as a full-fledged animator that would show his full potential, and also be the short that started the development of the Disney style. That short was The Three Little Pigs.
I built my house of straw. I built my house of hay. I toot my flute. I don't give a hoot and play around all day.
Unlike what most animators at the time would have done, Fred animated each pig a different way, giving them characteristics, mannerisms, expressions, poses, and movements that clearly defined their personality and distinguished them from the other pigs. There's also vitality, life, energy, use of squash and stretch, poses that read in silhouette, and all the animation has all the parts put in the right place. Those characters were believable to the audience, and this made it arguably the most successful animated short ever made. And that's my opinion as well. So, that's really all that matters. Although the animation of these pigs and the scenes that Moore did seems rather simple and standard today, at the time it was incredibly groundbreaking and work that had great distinction. Never before had a character that was a drawing come to life the same way. Overnight, Fred had become arguably the best animator in the world, and the one who for some time would be used as one of the frontrunners of the Disney animators, setting an example and influence for all the rest of them. Hashtag Fred Moore Trendsetter. Yeah, that one's gonna blow up. Fortunately, Fred Moore's distinct sensibilities and appealing style of animation led to his work becoming the basis of the Disney style, and soon the other animators at the studio began to adopt his techniques. After the success of Pigs, a lot of his animation was on Mickey Mouse, a character that he animated very well. Grayson Ponte writes in his blog, Fred's animation, even when using the old iWorks design, had a great amount of personality, sincerity, appeal, and counter-movements. His version of the character is always believable, and he truly is arguably the greatest Mickey animator ever. Moore's work during this period stood out for a bunch of reasons. One important one was that it was graphically much more defined and flexible than the work of the other animators. It had none of the rubberiness and awkwardness in movement that some of the other animators used, but it also wasn't stiff, and his animation had great flexibility. Another important one was the way the poses were structured and how the drawings were used to communicate. The majority of animation done in the early to mid-1930s used generic expressions and actions that were just plausible enough to make the story move along, and showed enough to show the idea visually. Things only moved when they were required to communicate the gag, and the actions and the expressions were indifferential to the character in the scene. Everything felt very flat, awkward, and stiff. Fred's work, on the other hand, was all but generic to the character. Every design and pose was tailored clearly to the personality, and everything about the animation was used to enhance the characteristics of the character. There isn't a Fred Moore drawing out there that doesn't tell you exactly who the character is and what their personality is. Except maybe this one. Oh wait. No, I did this one. Not Fred Moore. My bad. But this doesn't just apply to the drawings, but also to the acting and performance. A really good example is that Fred was the very first animator to define the fact that the pose and action of the body should define the acting, while the facial expression should communicate what the character is thinking. This makes a lot of his poses and action much more dynamic and believable than the work of an average animator. Because he is no average animator, but instead, an international man of mystery. Yeah, we brought that bit back. One of his most influential pieces of animation was the dialogue scene in the short The Flying Mouse.
What shall it be? I want to fly!
Fred, too, revolutionized lip sync in Disney animation and was really the first to ever do it in a believable way. Here, finally, there were actually cheeks on the character, and when the mouth moved, the rest of the head did as well, instead of the rest staying still and the mouth generically and oftentimes awkwardly moving, as it was standard to do at the time. Another short that shows Moore's true genius is Pluto's Judgment Day, where not only did he do a lot of the best stuff on Mickey, but also did tons of great scenes with Pluto.
You're just a big bully. I suppose you're proud of yourself.
The scenes he did with the latter character show how he really knew how to put everything in exactly the right place, what was an appealing drawing, and what is a pose that reads clearly as well as effectively. Among all the success, however, there was one assignment he was given that turned out to be a failure. It was a short called The Golden Touch, where he animated the charming elf who gives King Midas, animated by Norman Ferguson, the ability to turn everything he touches into gold. This short was an experiment to see whether or not human cartoon characters could be believable to an audience. The short was a miserable artistic failure, and one that Walt Disney was rather ashamed of. However, this would not be a roadblock for the Disney studio for long. Walt was quickly developing his first full-length animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and in December 1935, Moore was the second animator assigned to the picture. And unfortunately, we will have to stop there. I know, right? What a tease. There is plenty more to explore in the life of the great Fred Moore, but it will have to wait for another day to hear more about this international man of mystery. Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. And if you want to make sure this channel sticks around, you can check out our Ko-fi link in the description. Every bit helps. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.